So welcome to our first Thursday night session for our 30-day flow challenge. Uh, we are thrilled to have Cara Bradley with us today. And real quick backstory on Cara, Scott and I actually did a 300-hour intensive coach certification flow program through the Flow Genome Project a little over a year ago. I had the good fortune of having Cara be the mentor coach of my group. So Cara and I have shared many an intimate moment about all things human. And Cara was an amazing guide for me in that program. And that program did a whole heck of a lot to influence my direction. And really, I wouldn't be doing the things I'm doing today without going through that program and without Cara's mentorship. So much appreciated to Cara Bradley. She is a wonder in wellness and is an entrepreneur, a motivational speaker, worked with companies all over the world. And, we're just delighted to offer a little bit of her spirit this evening. And I want to also just point out that in the chat box, I have a couple of links for you to check out. One is for a program that I'm going to ask Cara to speak about in a minute. And another one is her website. So feel free to click on those when it's convenient for you. And I will continue to add some people in the mix. But Cara, I'd love for you to start by just giving us a little rundown where your attention is these days, where is your direction, and what's upcoming for you with your next project.
Well, thank you, Damon, and thank you, Scott, for inviting me on. It's one of my favorite subjects is to really downregulate the nervous system and to do so with breath, movement, and rhythm. And that's what I'm hoping that we can all do today is to really embody that and understand that. I have been teaching movement practices and mental performance practices for a long, long time. And boy, oh boy, do we need it now more than ever. So where I am right now is I'm working on a couple of projects. One is working on a course for Mindful Magazine. And I've done a lot of work with them, but they've asked me to put together really what I'm going to be sharing with you today. So I get to test drive it on you all. Thank you very much. Which is really understanding the role of movement in our state of being and how we can use movement, not as a workout, but actually as a way to shift state, to shift into coherent optimal state. So that's some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. And then the other project that I'm working on is called Project Be Well. And I think Damon just put a link up. And Project Be Well is really it's an exploration, not unlike what you're doing with Damon and Scott. It's an exploration of mental wellness from the aspect of different pillars, one being the gut-brain connection, which is a cutting edge approach to mental wellness. And there's a lot of new science coming out about the role that our gut microbiome plays in not only our mood, but our mental performance. So being a mental performance coach my entire life, this is just a natural progression. So this Project Be Well incorporates the gut microbiome and the gut-brain axis into other areas of wellness such as sleep, nutrition, stress reduction, and movement. So check it out. Check it out if you're interested. Just put your email in, and I'll send you some more info. So
awesome, thank you, Cara. Yeah, I looked at it today. It looks phenomenal. It looks really in sync with what we're doing here. And what I really love about it is, number one, you're right, the cutting edge microbiome science is really powerful in terms of mental health and peak performance. But I also love how you're really kind of honing in and circling on some of the wellness tenets that are just so critical and crucial. Sleep and hydration and nutrition and movement. These things obviously are in some which ways they're low hanging fruit, but oftentimes they're the ones that we kind of blaze past. So I really love, and the team that you put together is phenomenal. So I encourage all of us. I am personally going to sign on and get started on August 1st with you. So yeah, I think it's quite in harmony with what we're doing here. And so with that, I would love for you, I mean, one of the things Scott and I were really interested in doing this month, as opposed to last month we did a lot of talking and we talked to a lot of experts, which is also really powerful and informative. This month we wanted to do more applied work. And so one of the things that I thought about in terms of how we can do that is, like, the first person I thought of was you. I'm like, oh, Cara would be perfect for this. So if you don't mind, I would love it if you kind of took us through some of your practices. And Scott, I'm not sure if you want to chime in here for a second.
And also as you're going through it, is to make the connection to the science, how it would either down-regulates our nervous system or up-regulates, so that we understand the why behind it. I mean, one of the things that Damon shared with the 80-20 breath work was the nerve that it impacts in terms of being able to down-regulate a little bit. So if you also, as you're sharing, Cara, could give some of the science as to the why, because I think Nietzsche said he was a why could bear with almost any how, and I think a lot of times we hear all like, hey, we should do this, we should do that, but people don't necessarily understand the why behind it, especially in the context of mental wealth or mental health or neuro health for that matter. So I'd love a little more background too as you go through this stuff with us.
Yeah, and that is right up my alley. I mean,
Yeah.
I really, as a teacher, and I'm not a PhD, and I don't have a lot of letters after my name, but what I have been doing is teaching practices and disciplines for over 40 years. I started teaching figure skating when I was 15 years old. I was a figure skater, and I start there because as a young figure skater, back then we did something called figure eights. And so I would have a patch of ice early morning before school, and this patch of ice was mine to put a grid of a figure eight down, and then I would spend an hour going around and around and around that figure eight. Now, my friends who, we were about 12, 13, hated figures. In fact, they did away with figures in the sport. I loved it. I didn't know why I loved it, but I know now. And what was happening for me back then that I didn't realize was that I was training my mind. And I became so familiar with the mind-body connection, because I knew that if I started to think as I was going around the circle, because you had to be on an edge, right? You can't be flat on the blade is hollow, and you needed to hold either an outer or inner edge, just like skiing or other sports. And so I knew that if my mind got busy and I started to think too much, I would go flat. And it was like a challenge for me to see how long I could go without getting up in my head. So I had a real visceral experience as a young athlete of that. And I think that we all have had those experiences. And I encourage you to look back to childhood. And it may not be sport. It could be music, or just even playing in your backyard and being with the grass, or looking at the stars, or hammering a nail into wood. There are those times in our lives, especially if we've done something repetitively, where we lose ourselves, right? I mean, this is the essence of flow state. So I had that experience as a young figure skater. And then at 15, and I hope this is okay, because I'm just going to give you a little background, because I think that we can all relate to my story in your own life in some capacity. So when I was 15, I started teaching adults how to figure skate. And I noticed, and of course, 15, like you're not overthinking things that much. And I noticed that when the adults got on the ice, their faces were scrunched up, right? Their shoulders were lifted up by their ears, and their stride was very short when they skated. But over the course of the lesson, I watched their shoulders drop. I watched their face relax. I watched their stride get longer. And I watched them actually come alive. I watched them go from being in their head to being in their body and to being more youthful, actually. And so when we talk about flow, whether it be a physical, a state because you're doing something physical or music or meditation, it generally almost always happens that you are dropping out of your head, right? And I don't know if you guys have gotten to transient hypofrontality yet, but the whole idea is, when we get caught in our head and caught in our stream of thinking, it agitates. It's kind of twofold. Is we disconnect from our body and our capacity to know where our body is in space, which is proprioceptive awareness. And we also just start to agitate our nervous system. Thinking is one of our senses. This is the way it's looked at in a lot of Buddhist practices. Thinking is like our sixth sense. So we smell, we taste, we feel, we see, we hear, we think. But because we've given so much attention to our thinking, it's become dominant. And so we start to lose the other senses, our connection with other senses. So that's a long-winded way of saying that there is such a connection between our thinking mind and our nervous system that I've spent the rest of my career teaching yoga, meditation, and other disciplines, helping people to really connect in with the state of their nervous system. And that will help to start to settle a busy mind. So I'm going to say one more thing, and then we're going to do a practice. And you guys, if you have questions or comments, just jump on in. I often say that our mind is a reflection of the state of our nervous system. So I want to say that again, because I think it's really important. Maybe if it doesn't completely land for you right now, you can write it down, you can sit with it. Our mind, our thinking mind, the state of our mind is a direct reflection, just like a mirror, of the state of our nervous system. Oftentimes, if we feel frantic and frenetic mentally, there's a very good chance that we are agitated or stressed physically. So the way that we can help to start to settle a busy mind, because the busy mind, the mind is just thinking is just a bunch of synapses, right? They're just synapses that are coming through our nervous system. So settle the body and you'll settle the mind. So Scott, getting back to what you said is the why. Why would we want to meditate? Like, who in their guts, like, why the heck would we want to sit down, close our eyes and count our breath? Why would we want to do any of these practices that seem so boring? And the answer is that it is helping us to really train and become familiar with how to downregulate or come into a more calm, centered nervous system, because then we're going to have the clarity of mind. So I'm just going to see if you guys wanted to add or jump in, and then we can do our first practice.
Yeah, I'll just quickly just piggyback off of that and say that, just to your last point there about why, and I think sometimes this gets kind of misunderstood. What we're really trying to do when we meditate and when transient hypofrontality is like slow the front part of our brain down, is to become more authentic, to become our true selves. And I think that's the thing that we typically walk through life having these little moments where maybe we popped off, Maybe we, kind of swallowed our truth in a moment. Maybe emotions got the best of us. And we kind of like continue to build that residue throughout our day, throughout our week, throughout our month. And we carry those stories with us. And we get farther and farther. It's like it's adding paint to a table. And the more layers we add, the farther away we are from the authentic self. And so I think what the practice that Cara's talking about, and why it's so powerful, is that we're just getting back to our true nature. And then we're able to show up. We talk a lot about having a to-be list in this course. We want to go in. It doesn't mean that the situations, that external situations are going to be easier. It means that we're going to be more authentic when we're confronting them. So for me, that's really kind of the takeaway. I don't know. Does anyone else have any questions, or do we want to?
Well, my only addition to that is I think, Cara, because you were, working with you last year as well, is that whole, especially with the work within Paradise and all the mental health crisis, is I still believe that neuro health is the precursor to mental health. And I think once we get that understood, and the practices that you're going to share with us are just little, kind of gateways of getting that sense of being in control. Because I keep articulating how, feeling helpless is the number one cause of stress in our nervous system. And so by getting control or gaining that sense of control by this movement, thoughtful movement, it calms the nervous system. I mean, so I'm just a huge proponent of what you're teaching, and I can't wait to share it to the community. So
awesome. Fantastic. Well, I'd like to say one thing on that, Scott, which is, having been doing this for as long as I have, and really have taken deep dives down into many disciplines, I feel like what I teach best, and what I really prefer personally, what I prefer best, are really source code practices. And that's what you're talking about, Scott. It's getting down to the root systems, and they're very simple. This is the thing, people need to sell fancy things out there. So we've got all kinds of gadgets and gear, and they're great, and they're fun, and it's super to measure things, and I'm a proponent of that. But the simplest and the really the most profound practices are right down at the source level. It's the breath, it's simple movement, it's feet on the ground, it's just knowing where you are in space. And we often overlook them because they're so simple. Our mind wants to go to the more complex or the new and fancy version. So the practice that we're going to do right now, I'm not going to over-explain it, and it's called coherent breathing. Coherence is simply our state of balance when our nervous system is in a place where we are operating in an optimal way, right? So homeostasis, where we're calm and clear at the same time. And I'll explain it a little more after the practice. But this practice was developed by Stephen Elliott, and he is a researcher of coherent breathing. I think his website is now coherence.com. I'm pretty sure. And so I'm going to put on a 3-minute sound practice, and it's a piano scale. The piano scale is going to go up for a count of 5 or 6. I can't remember, but I'll count it out. Between 5 and 6, and then the piano scale goes down. At first, you may feel like you can't catch your breath to be with the scale. What I recommend that you do is just take your hands off the steering wheel. Trust that your body and your breath will find the rhythm over time. Maybe halfway through, where you finally feel like, oh, here we go. Okay. So it's a little bit longer breath than you're used to, and I'll explain more on the other side of the practice. So I'm just going to put it on my phone, and I'll guide you through the first couple. So feel free to close your eyes. Placing both feet to the ground is helpful. It gives you a sense of where you are in space, just having your feet flat. And here we go. So this is the down scale. This is your exhale. Inhale, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're going to hear chimes. And exhale here. And inhale. Hopefully you can hear it. Exhale. Inhale. Chimes. Exhale. And now you can just keep your eyes closed and allow your breath to find maybe a little bit more natural rhythm, maintaining that balance, some balance between the inhale and the exhale. If your eyes are closed, you can open them. Just pause for a moment and notice your state. So I'd love to hear from you all, maybe a couple of you, word to words, how you feel, how that was. If anybody would like to just unmute yourself, go ahead.
It was almost like instant serenity.
Awesome, Joe.
Definitely more relaxed.
Yeah, just kind of easing into just kind of a low state of flow and just kind of removing yourself from your state of mind and just kind of feeling in the moment.
Awesome. I'm so glad.
The length of time was longer than my typical breath both in out and in. And so it was a much more complete, full breath.
That's great. Anyone else?
I found the downscale on the piano really allowed me to just give myself permission to take that relaxation to another level. It was a really nice guide.
Yeah, I'll share this with you so you can share it with everybody. Take it and use it. It's 3 minutes. What's really fascinating about that, and I've done this, I was telling Damon the other day that I've done this on stage with my phone and a mic, to 500 executives during a keynote talk. And it's amazing what happens in the room. At first there's a little struggle because of course we don't breathe that deeply that often. But usually by the end, you just feel this whole drop, like this, collective shoulder drop. And so I'd like to explain a little bit about what's happening and why that's so effective. There's a couple of great books. The Healing Power of Breath is 2 Columbia professors, Ginsberg, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, but they work closely with Stephen Elliott. And what their research shows is that the optimal breath to shift our system into a state of coherence or balance is about 5 to 6 seconds per inhale and 5 to 6 seconds per exhale for adults. Children, it's about 4. Adults may have to start at 4, especially if we're out of practice. What's happening is that, and you may know this already, so forgive me if it's very elementary, but I didn't know it until a few years ago. Every time we inhale, every single inhale of our lives, every time we inhale, our heart rate goes up. There's an arousal or a activation of the stress response. Every single time we exhale, there is a release or a activation of the parasympathetic response, the rest and digest, and our heart rate goes down. So inhale, the heart rate goes up. Exhale, the heart rate goes down. Every single time. And so what's happening in this coherent breath, because it's deep and it is rhythmic, is that every time we inhale, our heart rate goes up, let's say to 90. Every time we exhale, our heart rate goes down, let's say to 60. Inhale 90, exhale 60. So we're activating arousal and we're relaxing at ease. So we have clarity and alertness and calm and ease in every breath. Now, we know that, let me just back, so that 90 and 60, if you take the difference is 30, and then you take that 30 and you look at the next breath and the next breath and the next breath, and that's how you'll start to calculate your HRV, your heart rate variability, which I don't know if you guys have gotten to, but HRV is really being used as the #1 metric for our state of wellness. We are not always going to be 90-60, 90-60. I mean, we're at work, we get an email, we get a text, there's the news, there's life, we're walking, we're going upstairs, we're going downstairs. So there's always going to be a lot of variation. Where we get into trouble and where that busy mind, going back to what I was saying before, starts to really get the best of us, is that when we live at inhale 90, exhale 80, inhale 90, exhale 85, inhale 100, exhale 80, where our body, because we're not exhaling, is actually never tapping into or activating the parasympathetic state, the rest and digest. So we are staying elevated in this stress response, which creates chronic stress. So using this breath is retraining not only our nervous system, because we can shift patterns, right? Neurons that fire together, wire together. What we do repetitively over and over again, just like learning to hit the tennis ball, right, Damon? Just learning to swing over and over. After a while, there's the muscle memory. Our body, our nervous system reacts very much the same way. So the more that we can practice and remind ourselves of this deep, coherent breath, of giving our body the opportunity to come back into coherence, the more that we'll move the needle so that our default state stays more in coherence or is able to bounce back into coherence more quickly. And so I want to say one more thing, and then I'd love to hear any questions. And I find this fascinating. So not only are we chest breathers, and we stay kind of up in that high alertness without ever getting the ease, right? We're in this alert perch state all day long. When we become chest breathers and we stop exhaling fully, what happens are two things physiologically. One is that our breath and the whole breathing apparatus assists our heart in pumping blood through our body. So if we're just chest breathing, then our heart has to work just that much harder. And the efficiency of our cardiovascular system just isn't as good. I mean, it just comes down to that. Now, that's my very, generalist description. So one is the cardiovascular system. And the second is that our diaphragm is a breathing muscle, right? So it's like this big balloon, or one of those woofers, is often used. So when we exhale, it actually gets stretched, and this bottom part of your diaphragm is pressing down onto your intestines, your stomach and intestines. So with deep breathing, you're actually aiding your body in digestion. So it's no wonder that when we get stressed, we're shallow breathers. We get out of breath easily, we don't have much endurance, and we have digestive issues. So if that's not enough to really encourage you to notice your breath, and you don't have to do this practice, but I'll tell you, if you do it once or twice a day, what'll happen, and this is the way it is for me, it's those bells are so ingrained in my mind that I usually can go back to the bells without even having to put the music on.
Beautiful. Thank you, Cara, so much for that. I want to just open it up a bit to see if we have any questions or queries, or how did the experience land for you? Maybe thinking about it in your own life and how you might be able to apply it. Does anybody want to chime in?
Hi, Cara, this is Rody. And just a quick question about the breathing. As far as it seems that the pattern is to try and be equal as far as the inhale and the exhale. Is there any advantage to having it the same, or lengthening the exhale or the inhale?
Yeah. So there, for sure. And this isn't the only way. So I think it's called the mother practice of breathing, which is to extend your exhale twice as long, or 50% more than your inhale. And that again is to give your body and your system the opportunity to activate that parasympathetic state.
Yeah.
So
they call it vagal toning, because you're stressing your body, so that allows for you to handle more stress, technically, I guess, but it's fascinating when you can actually do that. When my experience in that thing, I was actually starting to feel my heartbeat more intensely as I was doing the breath work. And it was for me, and I think about Michael Menino's talk about, being able to feel your heartbeat as a way of being able to really, the idea of interoception and embodied cognition, to me, that was I was feeling through that experience. And I'm just wondering, is that a common byproduct of that deep breathing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that so I always look at the breath as the major knob, that we have direct access to the state of our nervous system through our breath. I mean, we could do other stuff like put on music, go out for a walk, do yoga, meditate. But doing a breath practice gives us direct access. It's like putting your hand on the volume in your car and just having direct access to how high or how low. So the results start to become that you become more aware of all of these different signals from your body. Our body speaks to us through the language of these sensations, whether it be the beating of your heart or the clenching of your throat or the sweat on your skin. It's like our body is a symphony of information. It's constantly playing to us. But we get so caught up here in this sixth sense that we forget that the information is right there at our fingertips. So the breath practice is like step one, I think, for a lot of people. And then Scott, absolutely being able to notice when your heart rate drops or raises can be an immediate sign. It's like that's what animals do, right? They just have so much, they're so in tune with their senses. Yeah.
It's really beautiful. And, a neuroscientist, Lisa Feldman Barrett, talks about how the brain basically is a 2-bit gambler, and it's constantly making predictions based on things that have happened in the past. And so what the longer exhale, Rhodey, is really sending that signal to the brain that, hey, we're not, under threat right now. And so the brain then, the more information we send back up to the brain and through the body, through the breath in this particular case, the more the brain can start to make future predictions that are more in line with this parasympathetic rest and digest state. So it's a really fascinating thing. I felt the same thing, Scott. I noticed so much more about what's going on in my body, which makes me think of the question, like, how revved up am I usually if I'm not typically noticing these things? And frankly, it feels slightly awkward to start to feel your heartbeat or your blood, flowing through your body. But I really like the language you're using, Cara, about it being a symphony. And when we think of it that way, I think that's another thing. Language can be such a trigger for us. And using these breath practices, we actually usurp some of that language that can get us revved up and really kind of maintain that state of calm. And also push into more stressful situations, knowing we have this tool to be able to downregulate.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Any other insights? Any other observations?
I'll just say one thing I've been starting to do with the virtual meetings that I've been holding is doing the 5-5-6 breath work before I start the meeting. And it's amazing because I'm doing it with a lot of folks in the federal sector in DC who, they're typically very fixed mindset. They're very rational beings. And how often I'll get a bunch of messages saying, just thank you to start the meeting. I mean, it was really uncomfortable for me at first because I'm thinking of how they would respond. And I found it to be one of the best things that we've been doing in these meetings is just starting the meeting with the 5-5-6, and it's been a gift to kind of just get everyone settled in because, if you think about everyone's going from meeting to meeting to meeting, and next thing you know, we're in another meeting and they're just not present and they're breathing up here. And then all of a sudden we can have really calm conversations, even though the topic is difficult. So I found the breath work before a meeting has been essential.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I would like to do one more practice with you. With that, Scott, I mean, you're so right on for knowing to adjust yourself and then helping others to adjust before you even start speaking. I often will start a talk, another keynote that I give with an Emerson quote, who you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. And truly, who we are is already speaking to everybody else in the room or in the Zoom room before we even open our mouths. We are that brilliant. We are so intelligent. So if we really want to optimize how we are in a meeting, if we really want to connect deeply, then we want to take care of our state of being first. Forget about the notes, forget about what you think they need to hear or what you want to say, and get this incredible vehicle in a state of optimal coherence, clarity, and calm alertness and ease, so that when you step in the room, you are really humming at the highest level. And that's going to help others, because we do really modulate to each other. So what I'd like to do, just if I have another few minutes, is a really short movement practice. And we're all sitting, so we can all stay seated. But what this does is it incorporates the deep balanced breath. It might not be quite as long as the other exercise, but deep balanced breath with simple movement, because when we're in our body and we're moving our body, we're not thinking as much, with rhythm. And rhythm is another thing that I mean, it's a whole nother story, but rhythm is one of the most powerful tools to shift from a high anxiety state into a more coherent state. So let's just do this for a moment. You can even pull yourself back away from the screen if you need a little arm room. And you can close your eyes as we do it together. It'll only be about 2 minutes. So with your feet flat on the ground, we're going to inhale, reach your arms forward and up. Spin your palms open. Exhale, reach your arms out and down. Again, close your eyes if that's more comfortable. Inhale, reach forward and up. Exhale, reach out and down. Once more, inhale, reach forward and up. Exhale, reach out and down. Reach your arms forward and up. Interlock your fingers behind your head. So just cradle your head in your hands. Inhale, open your elbows. Exhale, let's all dip to the right. Inhale, back to center. Exhale, dip left. Inhale, up. Exhale, left, right, right. Inhale, up. Exhale, left. Inhale, come back to center and pause. Now we're going to go backwards. So inhale, lift your chest and look up. Exhale, look down and pull your elbows together for a forward bend. Inhale, open elbows, look up. Exhale, round, look down. Just one more time. Inhale, open, look up. Exhale, close, look down. Coming back up to center. And we're just going to twist side to side. Just gently. On breath. Whatever feels natural. And come back to center. Place your hands on your thighs. Close your eyes for a moment. So for this moment, turn inward and notice that symphony of sensation. You may feel coolness or heat, tingling. You may notice your heart rate a little bit faster. You may notice some tension or maybe a sense of relaxation. Our body speaks to us through the language of sensation, always informing us where we are, how we are. You can open your eyes. So if there's anything that I am passionate about, and I'm passionate about a lot of things, but one of the things I think I'm most passionate about is movement. but I feel like the fitness industry has hijacked movement, and I've been in the fitness industry my whole career. But the fitness industry has stripped us of the privilege that we have to be able to move our bodies. And movement can offer us so much peace, serenity, can offer us so much information. So I encourage you to look at how you move. That's simple. I call that the spinal six. We just moved our spine in 6 directions. And I've got some YouTube stuff out that we can share with you. Movement and breath. It doesn't get any simpler than that in really shifting ourselves from a busy state to a best state. So I'm happy to answer any questions or let you guys close it out.
Cara, that was phenomenal. I really would love to see maybe a little more participation here for a second and just have people, we talk a lot about, we've obviously talked about how as a society, we talk about time management and stress management. And really this is state management. And I'm curious if we can be, and I also think it's really important to be able to come up with language to describe how we're feeling when we can shift state. So maybe a word or two, anyone who's interested in sharing, what just happened to you? What just happened to your state? How would you describe and distill down into what that felt like?
If I was just going to use one word, I'd say balance.
Thank you, Sheila.
That probably is an interesting context, if I can, Cara. Like at 60 plus, I'm still a bit of a gym junkie, and I was just listening to your thoughts about the the exercise movement, and when I go to the gym these days, I always start a gym session and finish a gym session with a breath session.
Excellent.
And it's amazing how many people look at you and think, what's this guy doing, Like, is he some sort of space invader or something, because they don't get it. And I think to, I guess, agree with your comment that the fitness industry has hijacked the whole notion of physiology and being in touch with ourselves. And I think I see that on a daily basis. There's a lot of congruence with what you just said, because I know how much benefit I get out of it in preparation for my session, and also as part of the recovery after training, how much I also get out of it. And I think we can apply that in all areas of our life. When we have all the stresses of life, it's a means of being self-aware, but it's also a means of changing a state and getting on with it again. So there were some good techniques there. Appreciate it.
Fantastic.
And Damon, I was thinking I would add a nice long statement to it, but I'm just too relaxed. So I'm going to just leave it at that.
Cara, you said that you have some YouTube videos as well, so we can put that onto the link. So make sure we get that for folks, because I mean, you're just so good at this kind of stuff, and I think that's, for me, I was doing some breath stuff for after the fire. We were doing a lot of fire recovery here in Butte County, and this was last year. And one of the nonprofit providers, I brought the Muse in as a part of just kind of create some novelty for people. And this one woman says, I haven't been able to feel my face for, weeks because of the stress that she was under. And so she just did a 2-minute breath practice. And I kind of primed her with, think of a place that when you think about you, it makes you really feel good. And within 2 minutes, she got back in control. And she goes, and I said, how often do you do this? She goes, never. And I think that's the part of, at least for me, is recognizing the power that we have over our own kind of internal medicine cabinet. Like, we have what it takes to take care of ourselves if we just access these practices more frequently. Like I in the Stress Mastery, we talk about a plug-in ritual, which is the morning ritual, and then, recharges throughout the day, and then an unplug ritual. And I guess, is there a particular practice that you hold as a way to kind of inhabit this stuff, even though that may not be a word, but how have you inhabited this? What kind of routines? Because this is what we're trying to do in these 30 days, is to say, what's the one or two things that you can build in? And as a result, you might have to let go of some things as well.
Yeah.
But is there any kind of guidance? Not that I'm saying that there's an easy how-to, but
Sure.
what are some tips? Because I think it's easy. We all common sense, but how do we make it common practice?
No, it's a great question. And so I'll go back to movement. My statement about the fitness industry is that what pains me is seeing people not move because they think, they need to have their Lululemon yoga pants on, or their, their workout outfit on. And people, they stop moving because they think it's, they either have to be working out or sitting on the couch. So for me, one of the go-tos for me is just moving all day. And if that just means swinging my arms, like, in the way they do in Qigong, or, tapping your body, just moving. If you hear a good song on, why not just, dance a little bit? But seriously, I mean, it really is just getting your body movement, tuning in to noticing what needs my attention, what needs my blood flow. So that's just something simple that I think we can all just do a little more of, and not feel like it's weird, right? Like, breathing isn't weird. We've just made it so. The breath, like I said, the most powerful access to our nervous system. And, I definitely have, plug in, plug out, or unplug in the mornings. My morning, I always start with some form of meditation. And I say that because I'm not strict with anything. In fact, I want my body and my environment to guide me as to what's going to work today. And recently, I've just, it's interesting, just even the last week, I've found some really great, tunes, some of these, meditation, like binaural beats on YouTube that shift you into different wave states. And I've been doing that as my meditation for for 10, 15 minutes in the morning, which is something I've never done. So, my mantra is trust yourself, trust your body, and you'll know, and allow yourself to switch things up. We don't have to be so strict in all our practices. Then we become boring, honestly, and we're not really listening in. I mean, my gosh, talk about disruption, right? Everything's been disrupted. Why not disrupt your practices as well and allow yourself to be a little more creative?
I like that.
Yeah.
Because then you're not judging if you can't hit the routine, it's like, what does my body tell me to do? What can I do instead? That's a great practice. And it is improv, it's like, listen to your body and do what it tells you. So that's, I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. I think it was Dan Gilbert in Harvard did a study about a decade ago, and they concluded that our minds are wandering about 50% of the time. And so, to your point about routine and sort of a robotic way of going about things, then if we get kind of locked into those habits where we're on autopilot, that isn't necessarily the thing that's going to allow us to be present. And the theme of our week is presence, which is why we wanted to have you on, which is why being more connected to your moment, trusting that you're going to come up with the right movements in your body at the right time, is just compounds the ability to be in the present moment. So it just feels wonderful. That really altered my state, I have to say, in a dramatic way, from my chair, no less. Cara, the way you are able to guide us through that was phenomenal. Thank you so very much. I want to leave it open for the group, though, for any final questions before we sign off.
Cara, I just wanted to say I appreciated that this became an opportunity where, I really appreciate and enjoy the the cerebral aspect of what I do for work. And it's so easy to almost atrophy as you sit there all day long thinking and doing work and being cerebral. And then it almost creates its own atrophy, a little bit of a cocoon. And so this bit of movement and the awareness of incorporating that into throughout the day is almost like the neon glow sticks. They don't work until you bend them and they sort of snap and then they come alive. It felt like that. That's what the movement felt like. And I would love if you have something, as I strive to make my sleep better, if there's something that's analogous to that. What can I fall asleep to? You know, what are those tools that can help enrich that that great sleep at night that I don't always get?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm so addicted to my sleep hygiene right now. Like I just, like really being almost a scientist with my own sleep. And have you guys gone over all the sleep hygiene stuff?
No.
Yeah, not yet.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
I would just say allowing your body and your nervous system, think of it from your state of your nervous system. What can I do for my nervous system to allow it to start to really drop down, rebalance, come into rest? Because we're so perched all day long that, to give yourself the time and the care. And it's really, care is like, even what am I watching at night? Because so many things out there are really affecting our state. And Damon, you said it, one of the things I lead with often, and I remind myself, is that we need to choose our state or the world will choose it for us. Mm-hmm. So it's really, being self-authoring, right? Being in control of us, our health, our well-being, our performance is really to put your state of being, and it could be nervous system state, mind state, physical state, emotional state, but putting your state before anything, because otherwise the world's going to do it for you. You don't know the next notification that's coming that may rock your world, or some show that you're watching that may agitate your system so that you don't fall into deep sleep. So we really want to constantly monitor. Where am I? What do I need? What can I do? And so I'll share with Damon and Scott, I have a bunch, I call them mini wins. And the mini wins are they're really short state shifters that can help us. And they're common sense. We all know how to do these things. So, but they're reminders like, oh my gosh, I just need to go up, get outside and sit in the sun for 5 minutes. Like that's going to change my state, or,
every day.
Right. So it's very, very simple, but yeah, I mean, I appreciate the opportunity to share what I love to talk about.
So there are other, again, Joe, to your question, there's a lot of resources, and, I'll send out some stuff. I know we'll post some more stuff. Just going to Cara's website. Are there, again, any other things that you could throw our way, Cara? That'd be great. And there's no shortage. I guess the real question is really being committed to yourself to try it. This is a 30-day practice, and hopefully by the time when we sit back at the end of the month, hopefully Cara will be there with us, and we can just talk about what were the big takeaways. And if it's just one thing, that's massive. So I know for me, sleep is like the number one thing for me. So I'm really, that's huge.
Yeah, and I'm happy to answer, if you want to reach out to me directly, that absolutely, Cara at carabradley.net. If you have specific questions, but I'll get a bunch of resources over to you guys. I've got tons of stuff.
Well, I love our partnership, Cara.
Me too. Thank you.
Cara, thank you so much. What an amazing hour. Do you want to take us out this last 30 seconds with one final round of breathing?
Sure. So let's just, again, feet to the floor, feet planted. You just think feet planted. It drops your mind down into your feet. It's where we put our attention is is really going to create our state of being. Remember, I would go flat on my blade if I was too in my head. So to be optimal, we come down to our feet and just feel our feet on the earth, seat on the chair. Notice your heart beating, find your pulse somewhere in your body and just pause there for a moment. And now allow your mind to land on your breath. And just notice the experience of breathing in. What happens in your body? What changes? Notice the experience of breathing out. Do that for 2 more rounds in. And out. And in this extraordinary moment of change and disruption, in the burnings of the fires all around us, there is such an incredible space of opportunity and possibility for us as intelligent beings to rise, to show up, to tune into our natural intelligence of our body, of our mind, of beyond, to really put that forward into the world. So from coherence, from that state of clarity and calm, comes extraordinary wisdom, innovation, compassion. And that is what I hold as so hopeful for our world. Thank you.
Thank you, Cara. Much love to you. And all of us on the call, I would encourage you to see what really stuck tonight and maybe try to implement one practice that really kind of landed hard with you, and bring it into your day tomorrow. Most of us will be at work again tomorrow. It's really nice to consolidate some of this new material by putting it into action. We have to do that breath by breath, brick by brick, moment by moment, and really kind of allow ourselves to embody these new practices, and that's how they'll end up sticking. So, and those of you watching the recording, go ahead and bring it into your next day. But so happy to see all of you show up tonight, and we will see you all on the wall tomorrow. I have a feeling we're all going to be putting some kind of wall of wind about this experience tonight. I know I will. Thank you so much, Cara. What a pleasure. What an honor. Much love to you.
Thank
See
you.
ya. Cheers.